They arrived quietly, without drama, without warships, without probes. No flashing lights, no first contact messages, no demands, just observation. From behind the veil of their invisible vessel, the alien delegation watched the blue planet below, rotating with quiet confidence. It shimmered in a way that suggested it didn't care who was watching, as if it had survived too much to be impressed anymore. The aliens, scholars of life and order, floated silently inside the observation deck of their interstellar bioship. They were explorers, scientists, record keepers, tasked by the Galactic Council with cataloging intelligent life, understanding biological systems, and evaluating each species' survival profile. When Earth was first marked for observation, many were skeptical. The species that dominated the surface, humans, were known across nearby systems only through static-filled broadcasts of explosions, dance competitions, and something called professional wrestling. Hardly the material of evolved intelligence, but the aliens were professionals. They began their analysis with respect. From orbit, they scanned the planet's biosphere, marveling at its diversity. Oceans, forests, mountains, hurricanes, deserts, and a shocking number of species that appeared to exist solely to bite, sting, or poison the others. They zoomed in on the cities. Clusters of chaos wrapped in lights, smoke, and sound. Cars zipped across hard ground. Machines screamed through the air. Screens flashed endlessly, with faces, words, color, and noise. And yet, the humans thrived in all of it. To the alien observers, this was not a primitive world. It was a miracle of survival. A species not only alive, but dominant. Spreading, building, adapting, all while exposed to a planetary environment that, by galactic standards, was barely habitable. Resilient, one observer noted. Maybe even impressive, said another. They hadn't even studied the biology yet. The initial biological scan was promising. Humans, as it turned out, were structurally sound, bipedal, symmetrical, balanced. Their internal organs were well distributed. 2 eyes for depth, 2 ears for directional hearing, 10 fingers for manipulation. Redundant systems, fast reflexes, high mobility, pain response, complex immune defense. They could run, climb, swim, and survive both cold and heat. Some could even hold their breath for several minutes underwater without assistance. Their brains were electric jungles, highly advanced pattern recognition, language processing, creativity, and predictive logic. One researcher noted with surprise that the human brain had evolved to be aware of its own mortality, and yet continued to function. Impressive architecture, one alien recorded. This species is clearly built to survive in unpredictable environments. They could digest proteins, plants, sugars, fats, starches, even mildly toxic substances, and somehow extract energy from it all. They had bacteria living in their guts that improved digestion. They healed from injury. They could rebuild muscle and bone. Some even ran for fun. Knifer. And their reproductive process. Complicated, painful, and incredibly inefficient, but still effective. The initial report concluded with cautious optimism. Despite violent evolutionary history, the human organism demonstrates strong biological versatility and remarkable cognitive ability. Recommend deeper study. They expected to find more marvels, more examples of biological brilliance. But that expectation was very wrong. Because with the next layer of research, the data began to shift. What was once awe became confusion. What was once admiration slowly turned to horror. The first sign that something was deeply wrong came during a hydration study. A junior researcher, tasked with reviewing the human relationship with liquids, returned to the analysis chamber pale, or at least as pale as a being made of plasma filaments could appear. "There's a problem," it said. The others gathered. "Problem?" asked the chief biologist. The junior turned to the data screen and played a recording, a simple news clip from Earth's archives. A woman had died after drinking too much water. The room fell silent. "That's not possible," one alien said finally. "Water, the most fundamental solvent, the medium of all known biological life. You don't die from drinking it. It sustains life." But the data didn't lie. The human had consumed a high volume of water in a short time. Her cells had swollen. Her brain had drowned itself. She had slipped into unconsciousness and never woken up. The biologists scrambled for confirmation. It wasn't an isolated case. There were hundreds of similar records. Runners, athletes, ordinary people. Some trying to win radio contests. Some just exercising. One alien whispered, "So, too little water, you die." "We always thought emotions were ephemeral," said a researcher. "But for humans, they are as lethal as radiation." The concept was baffling. Aliens who studied thousands of species had never encountered a biological system so entwined with such volatile psychological feedback. One data analyst joked nervously, "It's like their minds are both the source and the assassin." Even more bewildering was the human response. Despite knowing the risks, they indulged in worry, anger, and despair, often fueled by their own complicated social systems, politics, and personal dramas. And yet, somehow, amidst this chaos, they survived, thrived even. The alien observers started to reconsider. Perhaps the true strength of humanity was not in their physical makeup, but in their capacity to endure internal storms. Sleep. It was supposed to be the simplest need, a nightly pause, a reset for the body and mind, but for humans, sleep was a fragile and complicated affair. The aliens discovered that insufficient sleep led to cascading failures, memory loss, hormonal imbalances, weakened immune defenses, and eventually, death. One report detailed people surviving days without sleep, only to suffer psychosis and organ failure shortly after. Another described the insidious effects of chronic sleep deprivation, heart attacks, strokes, diabetes, and early mortality. "Sleep isn't just rest for them," noted an alien neurobiologist. "It's a biological necessity, a strict one." Yet humans often chose to forego sleep, driven by culture, work, entertainment, or anxiety. "Voluntary self-destruction," one technician quipped darkly. The team also uncovered an entire industry dedicated to combating sleep disorders, pills, machines, therapies, and rituals. Despite this, millions suffered from chronic sleep problems worldwide. Aliens marveled at the paradox, being so dependent on rest, yet so willing to sacrifice it. They began to see humanity as a species perpetually balancing on a knife's edge. Alive, vibrant, but vulnerable. The aliens thought they had catalogued all human vulnerabilities, until they encountered something utterly baffling: laughter. Not just a social signal or an expression of joy, but a physiological event with unexpected consequences. Humans could laugh so hard that they lost control of their breathing, experienced muscle spasms, passed out from exhaustion, even in rare cases died. One report described a man who laughed uncontrollably for hours during a comedy show, until his heart gave out. Another detailed laughter-induced asthma attacks, seizures, and in extreme cases, fatal asphyxiation. The alien observers exchanged incredulous looks. "You can die from happiness?" one asked. "Apparently yes," the biologist replied. "Their bodies sometimes overreact to positive stimuli." This fragile balance between joy and danger baffled the researchers. Humans who survived wars, diseases, and natural disasters could also be undone by a good joke. One junior analyst speculated, "It's like their biology is designed to make happiness both a reward and a risk." Despite the risks, humans laughed, often, loudly, and without restraint. It was another paradox of the species, a dangerous vulnerability wrapped in one of their greatest strengths: love. The aliens had encountered it before, a biochemical cocktail of hormones and neurotransmitters designed to bind individuals together. But what they discovered about human love was unlike anything recorded in galactic archives. Extreme emotional experiences, intense love, heartbreak, grief, could cause fatal physiological reactions. One case involved a woman who suffered a broken heart syndrome, a condition where emotional stress causes the heart muscle to weaken, sometimes fatally. Others experienced fatal heart attacks during moments of overwhelming joy or despair, like weddings or funerals. The aliens found documented instances of people literally dying of love, their bodies overwhelmed by the biochemical storms coursing through their veins. A xenopsychologist mused aloud. They are so wired for connection that their very biology can betray them. The intensity of these emotions, combined with their physical effects, left the aliens both fascinated and horrified. They recorded that humans voluntarily embraced these risks, choosing love and emotional depth despite the dangers. To the aliens it seemed almost irrational, and yet it was deeply human. Perhaps it was this capacity for emotional risk, for feeling too much, loving too hard, that made humans unique. Music, a universal language, a source of beauty and unity across countless species. Yet for humans, music held a secret danger. The alien acoustic specialists uncovered frequencies, some natural, some artificial, that could cause severe physiological harm. Sounds too low for human ears, or too high, when amplified, could induce disorientation, nausea, and internal damage. One case documented a military test where a sonic weapon emitted a frequency, causing widespread unconsciousness and internal hemorrhaging. Another involved a concert where sound waves triggered panic attacks and seizures in attendees. Alien researchers noted that humans themselves produce dangerous sounds. Instruments, machinery, even everyday devices sometimes emitted frequencies bordering on lethal. The most disturbing discovery: some human music genres intentionally use these frequencies, consciously or not, to evoke powerful emotional and physical reactions. "Art as weapon," one alien remarked. Yet humans embraced music wholeheartedly, gathering in vast groups to experience these sounds despite the risks. The paradox deepened. They created experiences that could harm them, yet sought them out for pleasure, connection, and expression. The aliens noted with a mix of admiration and bewilderment. Humans lived on the edge of destruction, dancing dangerously close to death with every beat. Food. A source of life for most species, nourishment, energy, survival. But for humans, food was complicated. The aliens studied human diets, metabolism, and the effect of excess consumption. They were shocked to learn that many common foods, if eaten in excess, could become deadly. Too much salt, heart failure; too much sugar, diabetes; organ damage; too many vitamins, toxicity, neurological damage. Even water-soluble vitamins, usually harmless, had upper limits. The aliens likened it to a biological minefield. Humans daily consumed a variety of substances that in higher doses were outright poisons, and yet they often overindulged. Fast food, sugary drinks, processed snacks, all consumed with little regard for consequences. One report showed people knowingly eating foods flagged as harmful, driven by cravings, social pressures, or simple habit. The researchers summarized: humans maintain a delicate nutritional balance with razor-thin margins. Their food is both sustenance and potential toxin. To the aliens, it looked like a species constantly playing with fire, or perhaps poison, in their quest for pleasure and survival. This contradiction baffled them. How did they survive, let alone thrive? Reproduction. The aliens expected simplicity, biological processes designed to propagate life efficiently. What they found instead was a spectacle. Human reproduction was physically taxing, painful, and risky. Childbirth alone was fraught with dangers: hemorrhage, infection, and even death. One medical file detailed a woman's ordeal lasting days: contractions, blood loss, and intense pain, ending with the arrival of new life, but nearly costing her own. They were stunned by the paradox. Humans willingly subjected themselves to this ritual, generation after generation, despite the risks. Furthermore, infant mortality rates were significant throughout history, with many newborns succumbing to complications or infections. Aliens found this ritual baffling. Other species propagated life without such trauma. Yet humans also bonded deeply through this process, creating intense emotional connections that influenced their social structures and survival. One xenobiologist speculated: their species' survival is as much about emotional resilience as physical reproduction. This combination of physical peril and emotional depth left the aliens humbled. They began to understand that for humans, life was a constant negotiation between risk and reward, and reproduction was the ultimate gamble. The aliens began connecting the dots. Prava. It wasn't just individual events causing harm. It was the persistent weight of negative emotions, chronic sadness, anxiety, despair, that slowly eroded human health. They coined it the death frequency of feelings. Prolonged exposure to emotional distress resulted in physical deterioration, weakened immune systems, increased inflammation, and fatal cardiovascular events. Reports detailed cases where people, after months or years of stress or grief, experienced organ failure and death. One xenopsychologist commented, "Their bodies react as if under constant attack from their own minds." This cyclical damage was unlike anything observed in other species. The aliens speculated that this vulnerability was linked to humans' advanced self-awareness and complex social structures, which amplified psychological pain. It was both a curse and a testament to their depth. Despite this, humans continued to engage in emotionally risky behavior: love, loss, ambition, conflict. This balance of fragility and tenacity fascinated the alien observers. They had come to realize that humans were not just biologically delicate. They were emotionally volatile. And yet, they persisted. As the reports piled up, the alien delegation found themselves divided. In one chamber, a group of biologists argued fiercely. "This species is a bioaccident," one declared. "Their design is riddled with contradictions, vulnerabilities, and unnecessary risks. No intelligent species would evolve like this naturally." Another responded, "But they survive. They adapt. Despite every flaw, they thrive in hostile environments. Maybe it's not failure. Maybe it's evolved madness." Philosophers and scientists debated for cycles. Some believed humans were an evolutionary fluke, a patchwork of survival hacks stitched together by chance. Others saw in their contradictions a kind of beauty, a species whose fragility bred resilience, whose pain bred empathy. One elder scholar spoke softly. "They are a paradox. Living on the edge of destruction yet refusing to fall. A species forged by chaos, tempered by emotion, and defined by their relentless will." The debate continued without resolution, but one thing was clear. Humans defied simple categorization. They were neither perfect nor broken. They were uniquely human. Despite all the vulnerabilities, all the dangers of their own biology and emotions, humans endured. More than that, they thrived. The aliens observed humans rebuilding after disasters, creating art from pain, laughing in the face of death, and loving despite heartbreak. They invented technology to protect themselves from their own fragility: medicines, machines, therapies. They developed social bonds so strong that entire communities supported those in need. In the face of environmental hazards, they adapted clothing, shelters, and diets. They created stories, myths, and humor to cope with suffering. Their resilience was not born of invulnerability, but of relentless perseverance. One alien scholar summarized, "Human survival is not a product of strength or invincibility. It is a testament to the power of will, hope, and connection." The aliens began to respect humans not for their perfection, but for their beautifully chaotic existence. The Galactic Council gathered in the Grand Hall, vast, gleaming, and ancient, a place where countless species shared knowledge and debated destiny. The alien ambassador from the Earth observation mission stepped forward, datapads in hand. With a voice both reverent and bemused, they addressed the council. "Honorable members, we have completed our study of the species known as humans. They are biologically fragile, emotionally volatile, and perpetually exposed to self-inflicted dangers. Yet they persist, thrive, create beauty amidst chaos. They laugh, love, suffer, and rebuild, often all at once. Their weaknesses are many, but their spirit is unyielding. In all our cataloging, we have never encountered a life form so dangerously balanced between destruction and survival. They are the most illogical, unstable, yet unstoppable species we have ever studied." A hush fell over the chamber. The ambassador continued, "We recommend continued observation, cautious engagement, and perhaps admiration." Whispers of surprise and curiosity rippled through the council. Humanity had become, against all odds, a symbol of indomitable resilience, and the universe took note. Back on Earth, somewhere in a small apartment cluttered with empty coffee cups and scattered papers, A human scrolled through leaked documents from an unknown alien source. The report was clear, detailed, and oddly flattering. If you overlooked the parts about fragility and self-destruction, they read the line. Humans are biologically fragile, emotionally volatile, yet unstoppable. They shrugged, took a sip from their energy drink and muttered, "Sounds about right." Outside, sirens blared. Somewhere, a dog barked at nothing. A kid laughed too loudly. Life went on, messy, chaotic, unpredictable, but that was humanity's secret. In a universe of order and logic, they were the wild card, the unpredictable variable, the species that could die from too much of anything and still keep fighting. And as long as they did, the aliens would be watching, baffled, amazed, and maybe a little inspired.